and welcome to another episode of Offshore Adventures. I'm Bob.
And I'm Nikki.
And today it is, well, first of all, it's pretty early in the morning and it's pretty chilly as we near the end of October. We're the day before lockdown and we've managed to squeeze in our first 20-hour service with West Wales Marine, who are Yamaha specialists. And so we're about to untie and head off round to East Lanyon Boatyard, where we're going to have the service carried out. Shouldn't be too long, an hour or two at the most. First service being obviously an oil change. So we'll get untied and we'll head off round to East Lanyon, which is only a very short distance away. So yes, a very, very chilly morning, albeit no frost yet. But very lucky to get a window as well, especially the day before lockdown, or the second lockdown I should say. A window of very pleasant 24 hours of weather. Rain each side of us, but a nice day today. A perfect one to squeeze in a 20-hour service. Our lifeboat's still here as well. And with any luck, a bit of sun over there. And of course the consolation of coming out early is that a beautiful sunrise on the Cleddau estuary. And then just a bit further up there where the estuary juts to the right, that's where we're heading. That's where we're heading, which is where East Lanyon Boatyard is, and where we've got the hoist to lift us and hold us while we have the oil change. Absolute mill pond this morning. And as we do a right, channel markers there taking us down to the boatyard itself. Only accessible at sort of a couple of hours before high tide and a couple of hours after, so just got to follow the channel markers in, as water's still pretty shallow in places. And wow, here we are, just got round to the boatyard and just dropped onto the pontoon that's normally on the mud, of course, at low tide. Just waiting for Vance to come on down with the hoist up there, ready to lift us. So this one, as I was saying earlier, this one is a lift and hold, so we'll be held in the hoist as it's a relatively speedier service, between an hour and 2 hours if there's just one person on it. So that allows us to be held in the hoist, thanks to Vance accommodating us for that process. And in comes the hoist. Goes. So that's about 4.7 tons, perhaps a tiny bit more depending on obviously what fluids are in the tanks, fuel, water, black water, but somewhere around about 4.5, 4.7 at the moment, I should think, as we're about 50% fuel, a little bit more, about 60-65% fuel. sun is unbelievable this morning. Stunning morning. And here, West Wales Marine, local Yamaha dealer based just up the hill in Neyland, who are going to be looking after resin for us. Well, there we go. That's the first stage done. So we're up in the yard and just lowered it slightly. It does look very weird out on land. Gives us a chance to have a look at those zip wakes. There's the zip wakes under here. They're the zip wakes.
Yeah, so it's 20-hour service, yeah.
Zip wake 450S's on the back here. So just one this side and one obviously over this side. And the tabs themselves obviously come out, slide out from under here automatically.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
Oh yeah, the drain plug down the bottom there.
Plug there?
Yeah. Drain those two out first, and then because that gets replaced as well on the 20-hour. So the oil extractor is in through the dipstick point there, and then siphons out the oil, gradually filling up there, catching the oil. The gearbox oil just about finished draining out now by the looks of it on both engines. Greasing some of the springs and all the moving parts, or as many moving parts as we can get to on this service. Still siphoning out each of these, each of the ridges going down there. Each of the ridges represents a litre. So we're just coming up to 3 litres so far siphoned out of the starboard engine. That on. So gearbox just getting re-oiled here. Pushing the oil in there, and as it starts to come out the top plug, that gives an indication of when you got to the fill point. The indicator is when it just starts to bleed out of the top valve there, which lets us know it's full. The oil here up to about 4.5 litres. It does, each engine is 4.5 litres. If you change the oil filter, then it's a 4.5 litre fill. Obviously the oil filter will get changed as well. Just hiding in there as part of this 20-hour service. And then obviously new rubber seals on all the bolts that have been loosened and or taken out to carry out the drain process. They get new rubber gaskets. There you go there. So onto the port side engine. Cowling's off, just the 3 clips, 2 at the back here that you can see sticking out now, and then there's a 3rd clip just around there at the front. Good. So the old oil filter coming out on the starboard side. There's the 2 drain plugs for the gearbox. Just had their new gaskets put on, ready for refitting once the gearbox oil is then refilled. And the second port engine gearbox just refilled there with oil. See the excess coming down the gear leg, and then the vent plug at the top there just been refitted, and the drain plug now there just towards the front of the engine just been refitted with its new gasket. So new engine oil ready to go in. It's filled Up the top there, you can just see the yellow filler cap where the refill's done. And the last bit is just to fire up the engine with the flush muffs on, get some water through it, get the oil to circulate. And after that quick run, a top up just to get all the levels smack on. So a quick final spray over, water repellent over all the engine. Even with the cowling off, it's still fairly quiet running. So that's been start to finish been about an hour and a half, so relatively painless I should say. Not painful, a relatively painless process. Final grease up of the rams and the steering. And then back on the hoist, back into the water. For those of you who might need it, there's Andy's details if you need to give him a ring. And so just reversing out of the berth as the next one is ready to be lifted out. So that's the 20 hour done. Next time will be either a year, so next September, or 100 hours for these Yamaha 200s, whichever comes first. And well, hopefully the 100 hours will, and we'll get some use out of her into early next year, rather than the lockdown that we had this year in 2020 with our 795. So thanks again to Andy, both from West Wales Marine up at Neyland, for their work. Really good job, and of course to Vance as well at East Lanyon Boatyard for getting the lift sorted out. So that it could all be done. And of course it would have been very remiss not to pop along the estuary a bit, put the kettle on, and we've come along to Long Oar Bay again. Might remember that from an earlier episode. Lovely little spot, the little beach appearing as the tide goes out for a cuppa. Always good for a cuppa. So thanks indeed for joining us for this episode. A quick run or canter through the 20-hour service for you. And if you've liked the video, obviously give us a thumbs up and or subscribe to our channel. It's been good having you along. Thanks again to those that have already subscribed and liked our first couple of 3 films. And we'll see you again soon.